begin with breaking developments from Buea in Ambazonia, where health authorities are on alert following reports of a suspected Mpox outbreak, raising concerns about public safety and disease surveillance in the region. Now in Nigeria, attention turns to a major court ruling in Abuja, where justice has finally been delivered in one of the country's deadliest attacks on worshippers, the Owo Catholic Church massacre that shocked the nation and the world. And on the global stage, the United Nations has completed its latest Security Council elections, bringing in new non-permanent members who will help shape key decisions on peace and security over the next 2 years. From health cares to courtroom verdicts and shifting global power dynamics, today's developments reflect a world on edge where security, governance, and public trust are being tested in different ways. So what exactly is unfolding behind these headlines, and why do they matter now? Well, welcome to Flash News. I am Thabita Akor. Let's begin. Health officials in Buea have launched heightened surveillance measures following the confirmation of a Mpox infection within the health district, raising concerns about the potential spread of the disease. Now we'll see that the case was recorded in the Buea Road Health area after laboratory tests confirmed the infection on June 2nd. Authorities said samples had been collected from the patient several days earlier as part of routine disease monitoring. In an outbreak alert circulated to healthcare facilities, district health authorities called for immediate reinforcement of detection and response mechanism. Hospitals, clinics, and other health centers have been instructed to step up monitoring efforts and swiftly report any suspected infections. Now, as part of the response, medical personnel have begun reviewing patient consultation records dating back to May 1st in an effort to identify possible missed cases and trace any links to the confirmed infection. We see that Mpox is an infectious viral disease that can spread from animals to humans and within people through close physical contact. Health experts say exposure to infected animals, bodily fluids, contaminated materials, or skin lesions can increase the risk of transmission. The illness is commonly associated with symptoms including fever, headaches, body aches, swollen lymph nodes, fatigue, and a rash that develops into fluid-filled lesions before eventually crusting over. Authorities have advised residents to remain vigilant and seek medical attention if they experience symptoms consistent with the disease. Healthcare workers have also been asked to pay particular attention to patients presenting with fever accompanied by a rash affecting the face, hands, or feet. Public health officials continue to discourage the handling or consumption of bushmeat, citing the risks of exposure to animal-borne infections. The confirmed case has renewed attention on the threat posed by zoonotic diseases in Central Africa. The development comes as health authorities across the region monitor outbreaks of infectious diseases, including the continued presence of Ebola virus disease in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, no additional Mpox cases have been reported in Buea so far, but health authorities say surveillance activities have been intensified to contain any possible spread and protect public health. Now, away from that, the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday elected Zimbabwe, Austria, Kazakhstan, Portugal, and Trinidad and Tobago as non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council for a 2-year term beginning January 1st, 2027. Zimbabwe secured the African group seat unopposed and will replace Somalia on the 15-member council. Austria and Portugal won the 2 seats allocated to the Western European and others group, while Kazakhstan and Trinidad and Tobago also secured seats representing their respective regional groups. Now we see that the election marks a historic achievement for Kazakhstan, which will serve on the Security Council for the first time since gaining United Nations membership in 1992. Germany, on the other hand, which campaigned for one of the Western European and others group seats, failed to secure enough votes and finished behind Austria and Portugal. The newly elected members will replace Denmark, Greece, Pakistan, Panama, and Somalia, whose terms expire at the end of 2026. Meanwhile, Bahrain, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Latvia, and Liberia will remain on the council until the end of 2027, ensuring continuity in its work. Now, the United Nations Security Council is the only UN body empowered to adopt legally binding resolutions, including the imposition of sanctions and the authorization of the use of force. Its 5 permanent members, United Kingdom, China, France, Russia, and the United States, hold veto power over council decisions. The election comes at a time when the Security Council continues to face mounting pressure to address major global conflicts, humanitarian crisis, and calls for reforms aimed at making the body more representative of the wider United Nations membership. Now, a development is unfolding in Somalia. Heavy gunfire erupted in central Mogadishu on Wednesday, forcing residents to flee their homes as Somalia's political crisis intensified ahead of planned anti-government demonstrations. The violence occurred near the residence of former Prime Minister Hassan Ali Her in the whole Wadag district, raising fears of further instability in the capital. Her accused government security forces of targeting him as opposition figures prepared for protests scheduled for Thursday. According to him, the attack came while organizers were making arrangements for a peaceful demonstration against recent political development. An AFP journalist at the scene reported scenes of panic as residents rushed to safety while sustained gunfire echoed through the neighborhood. Witnesses said armed opposition supporters exchanged fire with security forces, triggering clashes that lasted several minutes.
The exercise has completed successfully. The exercise completed successfully.
Residents reported hearing explosions and heavy weapons fire, including rocket-propelled grenades, with the sounds carrying across surrounding districts before the situation gradually calmed. The unrest comes amid growing opposition to President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud following his announcement that his tenure would continue for an additional year beyond the expiration of his mandate on May 15th. The president maintains that constitutional changes approved by Parliament in March provide a legal framework for extending his term and implementing a transition toward a direct democratic elections. Now, the proposed reforms aim to replace Somalia's long-standing electoral system, which relies heavily on clan elders to select political representatives. However, opposition leaders and several regional administrations have rejected the extension, arguing that it concentrates power in the presidency and lacks broad political consensus. Now, efforts to organize nationwide elections have faced significant obstacles due to deep clan divisions, security challenges, and the continued presence of the militant group Al-Shabaab across parts of the country. Former President Sharif Sheikh Ahmed, who has also relocated to central Mogadishu ahead of the demonstrations, condemned the attacks near Ker's residence and warned that the incident could further inflame tensions. Despite the violence, opposition's figures signaled that plans for Thursday's protests would proceed, with demonstrators expected to rally against what they describe as government overreach and political exclusion. International partners, including the United States and the United Kingdom, have attempted to mediate between the government and opposition, but negotiations have so far produced little progress. Somalia has experienced similar political standoffs in the past. Now we'll see that in 2021, former President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo remained in office beyond the expiration of his mandate, a move that sparked violence in Mogadishu and threw criticism from the international community. With rival political camps now mobilizing supporters into the capital, concerns are mounting that the latest dispute could trigger another period of instability in Somalia, where the country is already grappling with insecurity and an ongoing insurgency. Now, let's see what is happening with a deadly attack in Owo Catholic Church in Nigeria. Over in Nigeria, a federal high court in Abuja has sentenced 4 men to death for their roles in the 2022 terrorist attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State, which left 41 worshippers dead and more than 100 others injured. Justice Emeka Nwete delivered the verdict after finding the defendants guilty on multiple terrorism-related charges, including the murder of worshippers during the attack. The convict, Idris Abdulmalik Omeiza, Al-Kazim Idris, Jamiu Abdulmalik, and Abdul Halim Idris were also handed 20-year prison terms for membership in a terrorist organization.
Some of them that are still carrying on acts of terrorism and other heinous crimes, they can only run, they cannot hide. The long arm of the law will catch up with them. And if you live by sword, you will die by sword. So this is a statement by the federal government, who provided the enabling environment, the facilities for the DSS to do their job. We are indeed very happy that this judgment, and particularly as the maximum sentence has been imposed on them.
The attack occurred on June 5th, 2022, when armed assailants stormed the church during a Pentecost service, opening fire and detonating explosives. The massacre sent shockwaves across Nigeria and threw condemnation from religious leaders, government officials, and the international community in his judgment. Justice Nwente held that prosecutors had established the defendants' guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The court ruled that evidence presented during the trial remained largely uncontested and sufficiently linked the accused to the attack. The prosecution relied on testimonies from several witnesses, including survivors who sustained life-altering injuries. Among them was a victim who lost both legs and an eye in the explosion that tore through the church. A fifth defendant, Momo Utuhu Abubakar, who was accused of providing financial support for the operation, was acquitted after the court found the evidence against him inadequate to secure a conviction. Defense lawyers indicated their intention to challenge the ruling on appeal. During proceedings, the convicted men alleged that they had been subjected to torture while in detention, including physical abuse and electric shocks. Under Nigerian law, death sentences require further legal and administrative processes before implementation. Although capital punishment remains legal, executions have become increasingly rare in recent years. And we see that the Owo Church massacre remains one of the deadliest attacks on a place of worship in Nigeria's recent history and underscored the country's continuing struggle with terrorism and violence and attacks targeting civilians. We'll definitely bring you up to speed with this detail. But until then, this is where we draw the curtain on today's Flash News. Do stay tuned for untold stories coming in from the home front at the top of the hour, 8 o'clock p.m. Until then, do have a pleasant day and stay safe.